Good evening and welcome to Grit Live Wrap Up. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish, and with me is Joe Samniego, Ben Snyder, and Adam Lemmeries. Be sure to comment, leave any question you have, and we'll try our best to answer it here live on the air. A big shout out to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Deshelle, and Robin for your incredible support. We really appreciate it. So thank you so much for investing in Grit Network, and we hope others will do the same, keeping us on the air long term. W Series and Formula One raced at Miami International Autodrome for the first time. Lots of hype building up to today's main event and many celebrities on site. The NASCAR Cup Series Goodyear 400 at Darlington Raceway for Throwback Weekend, an event that put on a really good show today for the fans in South Carolina. And we'll definitely be getting into the little drama at the end of the race between William Byron and Joey Logano. But first, let's start off with the Red Bull versus Ferrari battle in Miami.
A thrilling debut for the Miami Grand Prix. We saw towards the beginning stages of the race, Max Verstappen, he put the pass on Charles Leclerc to get the lead early on. And then after the safety car held off Charles Leclerc in a late challenge for that lead, Max Verstappen has now won two in a row. And an interesting fact, every race he has finished this year, he has won. The Ferraris didn't seem to have the straight line speed to challenge Verstappen in this long backstretch, especially where we saw the DRS zones, where we saw other drivers using DRS to get around, make passes leading up to the final corners before the start-finish line. And right now, Charles Leclerc only leads Max Verstappen by 19 points in the Drivers' Championship as we're coming to Barcelona, which is the site of Verstappen's first win. And the big thing, too, constructors, Ferrari, they're only 6 points ahead of Red Bull after having a 1-2 in the first race and double DNF from Red Bull. Red Bull is slowly catching up. Starting with you, Ben, is Ferrari now looking to respond to Max Verstappen? And is he going to control the championship battle for Verstappen?
Well, I'm all about the Constructors' Championship, trying to keep an eye on that one as well. So it's great to see for Formula One that battle is equally as close in the early stages of the season. And it looks like Ferrari and Red Bull are pretty close on pace as well. But I said it last time we were on here, talking about Ferrari, kind of what can go wrong will go wrong. It looked like today Charles Leclerc was set to take a win from pole position. He had the advantage to start the race, and then Max Verstappen found a little bit extra power and took the victory away from him. Certainly not a disaster for Ferrari. I mean, heck, both of their cars were on the podium, so a solid day nonetheless, but they do lose a little bit of ground in the constructors, and Leclerc does lose a little bit of ground to Verstappen on the driver's side of things. So I think people were very quick to write off Red Bull when they saw the reliability issues at the start of the year. Keep your fingers crossed. It looks like they have those set for now. And I think when you look at the raw pace of the car, I think it's Red Bull slightly ahead of Ferrari at this point. Of course, it is still early. There's a lot of time for things to change here. But assuming those reliability issues are a thing of the past for Red Bull, I think they've established themselves as the early championship favorites at this point. So to answer the question, yes, Ferrari have to be under tremendous pressure going into Barcelona.
Absolutely. I agree with everything you said, Ben. Right now, Ferrari, they better not look behind themselves because Red Bull is on a charge, and we saw that today in Miami. Max Verstappen, once he got the lead, it was hard to get around him. Charles Leclerc, he had the DRS, but like you mentioned, Joe, the Red Bulls had that straight line speed. And Ferrari needs to get on their prancing horse and get some momentum when we head to Spain. Otherwise, Red Bull could run away with the Driver Championship and the Constructors Championship.
It would be something else if Red Bull could come back from behind, considering double DNFs in that first race. And then if they could run away with it, we'll all be talking about towards the end of the season the collapse of Ferrari, if that was to happen. And still very early on in the season, so anything can happen in Formula One. As Murray Walker used to say, anything can happen, and it usually does. One thing that we saw that a lot of people didn't anticipate would be happening was George Russell getting another top 5 finish. He put on a heroic drive, but he took a big gamble on strategy. He stayed out there as everyone was making their first and even their second pit stops. He knew he needed a virtual safety car, rain where everybody had to come and get to intermediate or wet tires, or a red flag situation. He got that virtual safety car, and then the safety car once Lando Norris had that crash with Pierre Gasly. Then he had to come back, battle Lewis Hamilton, his teammate. Had to get around him using the outside of the track, then get the position back, and then got to get around Hamilton again to get that fifth place finish. And then don't forget, Valtteri Bottas just got a little bit too wide into the marbles, allowed both Mercedes to get around. So overall, Russell, heroic drive, but this all started because in qualifying, during the final stages of Q2, he was in the pits while other drivers were putting down more lap times as the track was getting more and more rubber, getting faster and faster. Seems like Mercedes, when it comes to strategy, sometimes are a bit too conservative and cost their drivers. Kobe, starting with you, is Mercedes holding back George Russell with some of their strategy calls?
Well, Joe, I don't know if I'll go as far as saying that Mercedes is currently holding George Russell back, but I will say, Mercedes is in a position right now that they're not used to. Mercedes has used to been at the front of the field fighting for the win every single week, and sometimes, just completely run away with the show. And now they're clearly behind Ferrari and Red Bull, and it's certainly going to be quite a challenge for them to try to keep bringing some of the updates to the car to try to close the gap. And it really seems like this weekend they closed the gap to Ferrari and Red Bull, but it's obviously not enough. And I think a lot of it really has to do with Mercedes trying to get a handle on this car to try to completely maximize it to the best of their ability and completely learn how to run a different race than what they've been used to in the past.
Can we put all four of us up here on the screen for a second? Because I just want to point out, I was watching a pre-race show yesterday, and some three people picked George Russell to win today's Grand Prix, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure what show I was watching. I'm trying to think back in my memory here, but I was a little perplexed by that, and I think, unfortunately, Mercedes kind of let you guys down a little bit with that blunder in Q2. But I don't know that it's completely fair to be too harsh on them today here on the Sunday wrap-up show, because they put out a call that Russell would benefit from if he got a VSC. It was a little bit of a risk. Joe, you were talking about them being maybe too conservative at times. When you're down that far in the back end of the points, sometimes you have nothing to lose. So I think Mercedes were kind of in one of those situations today, and it just happened to work out in their favor when Lando had the contact with Pierre Gasly that sent the virtual safety car and then the full safety car out there. So, I think Mercedes, we joke all the time about Ferrari's strategy department. They have had some blunders themselves over the last couple of years that have cost them at times. You think of how close the championship battle was last year. Maybe there were one or two things that could have gone slightly differently for them. And we'd be talking about Lewis Hamilton as an 8-time world champion now with how close the battle with Verstappen was last year. This season, obviously, Mercedes are a little bit behind, but they've established themselves today. I think when they maximize the pace out of their car, and George Russell, I have to say, has done the best job of doing that. I think every race this year, he has absolutely maximized the realistic output of the Mercedes car that they have at this point in the season. I think they've established themselves as the third best team when they're firing on all cylinders, and to be fifth and sixth right behind the two Ferraris and two Red Bulls today, you can't really ask for much more. So I have to tip my hat to George Russell for sure, because it's been a great start to the season for him, all things considered, with the limitations of a new Mercedes.
You said it right there. All things considered, fifth, sixth, that has to be a good day for the Mercedes. And of course, yesterday we had the disadvantage of no qualifying, just the practice speeds, but Russell was up there. It's just unfortunate. Qualifying, had he been up towards the front, who knows what we'll be talking about, but I don't think Russell could have, even if he was up towards the front, won, because I don't think he has anything on the straightaways for Max Verstappen and the Red Bulls. This was a new track, and usually when we see new tracks, it's a procession where we have some passing, but not a whole lot. This race, it seemed, especially in the beginning stages, we had quite a lot of action going on. The middle part, we still had a few battles here and there, but we did have a couple breaks where we saw cars get away from each other, one DRS train. However, the atmosphere we saw, fans in attendance, the yachts in the fake marina area, the temporary condos even, big party environment, and we know even some of the drivers from NASCAR, others that have gone seen this facility were really impressed with the effort Formula One had put in for this event. However, we know the drivers are not exactly happy because the racing surface, of course, was made for this race weekend. It seemed if you got a little too far off, like Valtteri Bottas in the marbles, you were way off. We saw issues with the track as well too, lack of grip. Still, overall, it wasn't exactly the procession like we usually see in the first debut of a track. So, Adam, starting with you, overall, did Miami add to the hype for Circus of America, and your thoughts on this race?
Well, first of all, you saw a lot of celebrities on the grid for the race. You saw people like Tom Brady was there. Former First Lady Michelle Obama was in the Mercedes paddock. You had Venus and Serena Williams there. It was a really cool atmosphere. And like they mentioned on the pre-race show, it's a party city. You think about Austin, Texas. It's a college party city with the University of Texas. And next year, when everyone goes to Las Vegas, well, we all know about Las Vegas. Overall, I gotta say, motorsports in Miami it's been around for a long time, thanks to Ralph Sanchez, who is a promoter there. But for the race, I gave it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was really cool, and I can't wait to see everything that happens next year. And maybe one more thing, have the race a little earlier, so it doesn't go up against NASCAR. So if there are any NASCAR fans that are F1 fans, they can switch over after Formula One straight to NASCAR.
Yeah, Adam, I totally agree with you on the earlier start time. It'd be nice if they got started at noon or even 1 p.m. And because I felt like I was waiting around a long time today for all the racing to begin. I know a lot later Formula One start time than what we're used to in the United States. We're used to most of the races happening in the early morning, like 9 a.m. Eastern time here on the East Coast. So I admit I got really impatient during the day waiting for this race to begin, but the hype was unbelievable, unlike anything I've seen from a Formula One race. In general, you mentioned, Joe, a big party environment. Austin, Texas, the next race in the United States, Circuit of the Americas. That city is a big party city. Miami is a big party city, and Las Vegas, the race next year, that's a big party city as well. So I think Formula One is doing an excellent job capitalizing on all these different markets in the United States and trying to find the perfect city. With that said, I thought it was a decent first time around at Miami. I'm sure that's probably going to be some improvements. I'm sure they're going to listen to driver feedback and try to make changes. Just like there was a lot of criticism about the track in Saudi Arabia, Jeddah, and then in just a few months' time, they made some corrections to try to make it better, and we saw less complaints from the drivers about the Jeddah circuit itself, and with the drivers complaining about the racing surface, and also I believe a couple of the corners as well. Maybe Formula One will take a look at that during the rest of this season and over the off season and figure out what they can do to make sure that the second go around of the Miami Grand Prix is going to be much better than we saw this time around. I'll admit the first half of the race, there wasn't really a lot going on for the most part, and then we got the caution, Lando Norris hard in the wall, and then that's when it really got interesting. I thought we were going to see Charles Leclerc get by Max Verstappen, but unfortunately, Leclerc just didn't have enough car today to get the job done, and we also saw a great battle for the final spot on the podium. Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz as well, and we saw several other good battles as well. So overall, if I had to score the Miami Grand Prix, I think I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10.
I know I'm Mr. Noon over here, so it might feel weird to hear it coming out of my mouth, but I was actually okay with the 3:30 start time today because I was out at Mother's Day lunch, so it gave me some time to get back home and see the race there. But it was unfortunate that it went straight up against NASCAR. I'm sure there's some racing fans that would have liked the schedules not to conflict, but I think the FIA are much more concerned with a worldwide audience than they are going up against one particular series in America, even if it is the country that they're hosting this particular race in. In terms of the actual Grand Prix, I have to agree with you, Kobe. I think the second half was certainly much better than the first. I think there was somebody on social media that I saw that I think hit it pretty well. I think the atmosphere and the presentation of the F1 race in Miami was better than that of the NASCAR production, but I think the racing as a whole throughout the race, it still amazes me that they raced that 550 package at Darlington and cut the horsepower. That track was absolutely not suited for that. The racing today I thought was pretty good. And I think there was some of that lacking on the Formula One side. Now, it is a brand new track. I have to say, I think Herman Tilke ran out of new ideas about 10 tracks ago at this point. So maybe they can come back for the second season next year and make some improvements like they have in the past. But, I think as a whole, certainly to have the buzz and the atmosphere of celebrities there certainly helps bring in a new audience. And that's something that Formula One's done very well here in the United States. I would caution people maybe not to jump on the bandwagon too much, because I think there is a risk of overexposure here. We're getting a third race in the United States next year with the Las Vegas Grand Prix. So, it's going to be interesting to see how all of that gets balanced, but they're certainly doing the most that they can to take advantage of a market where things are exploding right now like they never have. And, I think Miami, certainly the atmosphere lived up to the hype. The racing, I think the jury's still out on it. I'd probably give the race, a little bit lower than the two of you, Adam and Kobe, maybe go for 6.5 out of 10. Certainly the safety car coming in changed the complexion of the ending and I think helped the rating a little bit. But, I think there's some work to do to put on a good show in terms of the racing product when they come back in 2023.
Guys, sorry I can't be with you tonight as well. A bit late for me after covering Miami as well. I'll be there, though, for the Encore show tomorrow as well, so I can't wait for that with Ben and Brandon. Right, let's talk some Miami, shall we, as well? And my honest opinions on the race. Lap 1 to 12, fantastic. After that, it settled down to the usual race lull. There were some exciting bits as well. The train for 12th position was good. But again, it just gave me the vibes that I don't think the tyres were quite right here. More than the circuit, I think the tyres didn't really give up as much as we were expecting them to, in terms of the fact that if we had the correct tyres, which was C5 onwards, so C5 for the soft, C4 for medium, C3 for hard, I think we would have seen a two-stop race for everybody, and the tyres would have been a lot more easier to follow as well, and it would have been a lot more DRS as well for giving the overtakes. Admittedly, it did feel a bit like Sochi for those laps, and then the crash happened and the safety car came out, and then it was like bang, we got a race on our hand. Everything exploded from then. Everyone was crashing into each other. The penalties were happening as well. Who was on fresher rubber, who wasn't? Perez failing to get ahead of Sainz. Perez with an engine problem, failing to get ahead of Sainz as well. But crucially, it was good points that both of the Red Bulls took off the Ferraris today. Only 6 points between them now in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari had such a dominant lead at the start of the year with a double podium. It's really going to affect them now that they're now in a hunt for the Constructors' Championship. That's one thing that they really want. They haven't had one since 2008 and a Drivers' Championship since 2007, so they're really on the ball now. Going for it as well, I think we're going to see Verstappen's now on a roll again. He's won 2 races in a row, 3 races this year. Leclerc's only won 2. Leclerc now needs to win in Barcelona to keep that up. But I kind of don't want him to, because the gap in the championship between Verstappen and Leclerc is 19 points. So if Verstappen wins in Spain and Leclerc is second or third, the gap closes down to around about 12 and even 8 as we go into Monaco. So I really, really want that to happen, so we have some great battles between them as well at Monaco, and then it'll make Monaco exciting as well. Then we've got Azerbaijan, Canada moving around further on in the season as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. Going forward then, let's talk about that crash. I'm sure you're going to talk about it in a second as well. Lando Norris up the inside. That was completely on Lando. Gasly was off the track, moving around as well, trying to keep off the line. He lost hydraulic pressure as well, so he had no power steering. It was hard for him to move. Lando, I think, only saw him coming back on the track, so he thought he was going to Gasly was going to defend against Lando going through. So Lando went aggressive defending and they just made contact. I read it as a 50-50. The Schumacher incident, when he went on the inside of Vettel, that was Schumacher's fault, but Vettel turned in as well. That should be deemed a racing incident as well. It was. Luckily, no further action. I feel sorry for Schumacher. He would have got points today. That's a bitter blow for him. Would have had his best result in Formula 1, 8th at one point as well. But Verstappen winning from Leclerc second and Sainz third, Perez fourth was great. Russell battling Hamilton and actually coming out on top had nothing to do with the fact that Russell was on new tyres. Hamilton was repassing him lap after lap. They were having a proper duel between each other, and Russell came out on top. That's great news for George, who again continues to outbeat Lewis Hamilton. Of the 5 races we've had this year, George has outraced Lewis 4 times. Only Bahrain has Lewis finished ahead, and that was because of team orders that Lewis got ahead of George as well, because George would have finished third if it wasn't for Toto giving the order. So that was fantastic. Brilliant action, and let's keep it going forward as well. Albon, interesting for him. Dyed his hair in Australia, got 10th. The dye faded by the time we got to Emilia-Romagna, finished 11th. Re-dyed it this weekend, thinking I'd dye my hair, I'll get points. It's only gone and happened. He finished in 10th. The weird thing these drivers do to take in their own sort of psychic abilities and superstitions is brilliant. So yeah, that's going to be great to see Albon again on points for Williams, proving that Russell and Albon are 2 great drivers to get that car up there. Latifi, not so much, down in 14th place, had a bit of a nowhere race as well. Bottas, I felt sorry for, touching the wall on the safety car restart. Cold tyres as well didn't help him. The 2 Mercedes got through. Ocon, Alonso, thumbs up today as well for them. And really, I feel sorry for Gasly and Norris. It shouldn't have happened, and I definitely feel sorry for Norris. He was one of the drivers who shouldn't have been out of the race at all, really. But yeah, it was an interesting race, and it was a good race as well. Anyway, I've taken up 5 minutes of your time, guys, at your show. Sorry for that. You know I like to ramble. I think it's been a great one. I nearly got my pick a winner, but I'll take the 2 points I got for Jamie Chadwick being the victor this weekend in the W Series. I'll talk more about that tomorrow with Ben on the Grid Encore show as well. But what a race from Jamie Chadwick. Well done to you. And what a race from Max Verstappen. The championship is well and truly on, and I'm happy to see that massive gap that Leclerc had at the beginning of the season is now slowly being eked down by Verstappen. We have got a title fight on our hands, and the tension is bubbling here. I can't wait. The next 3 races are going to be brilliant. And yes, even Monaco is going to be brilliant. Thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.
And we encourage everyone to click on the link in the video description to Joshua Burst's YouTube channel. And also, one follow-up. Since the race had ended, the official results came out, and there was one change. Fernando Alonso handed another penalty. So Alex Albon actually got 9th place today. So 10th place and a 9th place. Wondering if that hair is going to get more and more bright red as Alex Albon tries to keep this streak going of red hair and scoring points. Speaking about points, taking a look at the grid ratings for Formula One. As you can see, Charles Leclerc still leads. One of the big things, Verstappen is closing down on him. George Russell still right there in 3rd place. And Carlos Sainz, he is back in the top 5. He was behind Lewis Hamilton entering this weekend in 7th place. He bypassed Lewis Hamilton, and with Lando Norris failing to finish the race today, got back into grid ranking by getting into that 5th place position. So it's going to be really interesting to see what's going to happen with Carlos Sainz if he can continue improving his consistency after 2 rough races. And one of the big things, of course, grid ranking. Later on, we're going to show the grid ranking with the W Series included, because the W Series are now part of it, and they are done with their first race weekend.
Yeah, the 2022 W Series season got underway in Miami, and it already looks like Jamie Chadwick is the championship favorite again. She led most of race 1, capitalized on a mistake from Emma Kimmelina on the final lap. Race 2, she led every lap, total control of the race that had no safety car or red flags like we saw in the first race of the weekend, and Jamie Chadwick was the only driver to finish on the podium in both races this weekend in Miami. So here's my question, starting with you, Ben. Is this her championship to lose?
Absolutely. And not only is it her championship to lose, it's a championship that I think she has to win in many respects. We've talked about this on this show before. It's unfortunate that Jamie Chadwick couldn't get an opportunity to move up to Formula 2 or move up the racing ladder somewhere else. The W Series has been controversial because the beauty of motorsport is it is one of the few sports around the world where women can compete with men on equal terms and equal machinery because the car doesn't know the gender of its driver once the helmet goes on. That being said, the W Series, I think, does provide some opportunities for women that might not otherwise have them, and that includes, unfortunately, the two-time defending champion, Jamie Chadwick. There was no place for her to move forward, so despite winning 2 championships and proving everything she needs to, she has to come back. This is her only last resort, if you will. So best case scenario, she even further strengthens her case and does what everybody's expecting her to do and win the championship once again. Worst case scenario, she doesn't win the championship, and I think that would only hurt her case and make it next to impossible to find a ride somewhere else, because people might look at that and say, well, she kind of took a step back this year because she couldn't defend her championship. So, I think everybody's expecting her to do that. She certainly, she couldn't have gotten off to a better start this weekend, sweeping the weekend and winning both races. I think she's well on her way to doing so, but there has to be immense pressure here. I'm glad she has an opportunity to be racing something this year, and I'm glad W Series can give her that opportunity, but she has to go out and win this championship if she wants any further prospects of moving up the ladder in 2023.
Absolutely agree with everything you said, Mr. Ben Schneider. This is Jamie Chad. This year, after sweeping Miami, this is Jamie Chadwick's championship to lose. After everything she has done in the W Series, and if I was an F3 or an F2 owner looking for a driver for next year, I would contact Jamie Chadwick. I'm happy, she gets to compete in the W Series. But there's so much good talent in the W Series this year. You mentioned Emma Kumalainen. She started on pole for race 1 over Jamie Chadwick, over Alice Powell, the 2 ladies who were battling out last year. Unfortunately, Emma Kumalainen, Nira Marti was on the pole for race 1. So it was, I gotta say, Jamie Chadwick in the W Series is a real incredible driver. And how cool was it to see an American compete in the W Series this year? Chloe Chambers, who is Jamie Chadwick's teammate. It's gonna be fun to see how she does, and how cool is it to see here in the USA we actually, finally a good TV contract that we can follow the W Series here in the USA.
Yeah, Adam, it's really nice to follow the W Series more closely now, since we have more resources at our fingertips to be able to keep up with the championship closely rather than just from afar. And I think this is absolutely a must-win championship for Jamie Chadwick. And earlier tonight, had an interesting discussion with one of my followers on Twitter, and we were talking about the W Series and speaking hypothetically here, let's say Jamie Chadwick wins the W Series title this year and becomes a 3-time W Series champion, and then in 2023 she's still not able to move up to Formula 3 or Formula 2. At that point, we were wondering, does W Series have an identity crisis on its hands? What does it want to be? Does the W Series wants to be? Do they really want to be a series that's going to provide opportunities for these drivers to move up to the next level, or is it just going to be a series where you can just race your entire career and Jamie Chadwick become a W Series legend? I'm not really at that point. If she's not able to get an opportunity in a series like F2, F3, Indy Lights or IndyCar, then W Series certainly has a problem on his hand. And got a comment here from one of our regulars, Humper Dean, saying, seeing Jamie's stagnation is really sad. I really want her to get a shot at IndyCar. We've been missing a solid female driver since Simona Di Silvestro left. Yeah, remember when Simona was running full time in the series? She ran extremely well on the street and road course, which she's going to be doing with Pareto Autosport at several rounds this year. I believe her first race is gonna be at Road America, and it's gonna be interesting to see how Pareto Autosport is gonna get along working with at Carpenter Racing this year. And I know Jamie Chadwick's dream is to go to Formula One, and if it turns out that her dream of going to Formula One is unfortunately not going to be possible, I wonder if she would consider having a career in the United States. I'm sure she would certainly bring a lot of eyeballs to the Road to Indy ladder system if she goes and races Indy Lights, and a lot of people will certainly be paying attention if she goes to the NTT IndyCar series. So there's certainly a lot of options for her, or even if she wanted to get into sports car racing, there's a lot of opportunities in sports cars. But right now with the W Series, as I've been saying, if Jamie Chadwick is a 3-time W Series champ at the end of the year and still cannot move forward with their career, then W Series, they need to look in the mirror and try to figure something out because I think it would be really unacceptable if Jamie Chadwick cannot get the funding to move up, because she certainly proved herself. And some other people I was talking to on Twitter were jokingly saying that she's way too good to be in the W Series. Look how she performs each and every race. And I know we were talking before the air. Joe's wondering if Jamie Chadwick can potentially have a perfect season. I could see her winning a huge chunk of the races, but with today in motorsports, it's extremely hard. I'll say almost impossible to be perfect every single race throughout the season. I don't think Jamie Chadwick's going to have a clean sweep of all the races, but I certainly think she's going to be the overall favorite for the championship. And in order for her in order for her to do that, she's going to need to keep performing like she performed this weekend, and the others going to have to go back to the drawing board. And her main championship rival last year was Alice Powell, who got a podium finish today, but a big missed opportunity yesterday in race one when she stalled at the start and hit the wall. A rare mistake for Alice Powell. Today got third place, but she's definitely started off the year playing catch up. Does Powell and everyone else need Chadwick to have bad luck if they want to have any shot at the title this year?
You're going to need Jamie Chadwick to have bad luck, but also you're going to have to go out there and win and win and win. Very similar to what we've seen with Formula One when Max Verstappen had 2 DNS and Charles Leclerc had 2 wins. Look at that points lead now. It has closed up. For Alice Powell, she needs to go to Barcelona, take the pole, start the race up front, and stay up front to the end. We still have a lot of racing to go. We've only got 2 down, so we still have 8 left. So if she could just keep chipping in to that lead over Jamie Chadwick, she could do that. Emma Kimmelinen, who twice could have been on the podium, could have gotten those 2 podiums, been a much better situation. Now she needs to go out there, win, and she could start chipping in, but she's going to have a much bigger gap concerning no points after this race weekend. So they have to step it up. The competition has to step it up because, as you mentioned, Kobe, Jamie Chadwick looked like she's in a league of her own. She could go out there, dominate. I still have to believe that she could potentially do the perfect season. I know it's a challenge. Very few people have done it on any level, but for the rest of the competition, they got to go out there and really step it up. You can't just anticipate Jamie Chadwick to have 1 bad race or 2 bad races because he doesn't look like it. She shows the consistency. She's the only driver to podium in both races already this season in the W Series.
I guess I don't really have too much to add. I mean, I think it's a follow-up to the first question. I think certainly other drivers are going to have I think it's going to have to be a combination of both, if we're being honest. They're going to have to step up their games, but they're also going to have to see some bad luck come Jamie Chadwick's way. It is the biggest scheduled W Series they've ever had, Joe, so I don't see her sweeping every season. Motorsports is just way too chaotic of a discipline to see that happening for me. We saw Chadwick, if the race hadn't gotten restarted there at the end of race 1, we wouldn't be talking about this right now because she would have split the weekend. So, I think, to sweep all 10 is going to be a stretch, but she certainly is the championship favorite, like I said, and the competition is going to need a bit of interference, in terms of misfortune coming Jamie Chadwick's way for anybody to take the championship as it stands right now, or they're going to have to step up their games, or it's going to have to be a combination of both.
Yes, certainly a combination of both. And race one had a long safety car and red flag due to miscommunication between the marshals. Of course, the marshals are volunteers, and without them, we wouldn't be racing. But the major controversy at the end was the incident between Marta Garcia and Emma Camilana making contact. Garcia lost a podium after she was handed a penalty that put her out of the points. Today, Camilana and Powell make contact. And for Emma Camilana, definitely a weekend of missed opportunities with all things going wrong for her. And as of right now, W Series has not made a decision on a possible penalty for Alice Powell with the late race contact there. Do you agree with the penalty on Marta Garcia? I know saw Marta talking about it on social media, and she strongly disagreed with this call. And do you think Alice Powell should be penalized for the contact today?
I agree with what Marta Garcia said. I think it was just a racing incident. Between Garcia and Emma Camilana, it's the last lap, and you're going for every single place you can. So I don't think there should have been a penalty. I think to me, it was just a racing incident, and the same thing goes with Emma Camilana and Alice Powell. It was just a racing incident. I don't think Alice Powell should be penalized. And so, to me, it was a racing incident.
I have to say very similar. It was a racing incident. Last lap, Martin was on the inside. Whether or not Camilana gave enough space, at the end, they made contact. Camilana, we got to be honest, too. It was Camilana also on the start of that last lap. Yeah, she was in the lead, but entering turn one, she pushed it too hard. We almost saw 3 wide entering that corner. So she put herself in a situation where she had to try to come back from behind, get the position, and she was just really racing hard. So maybe a little bit too aggressive trying to get that, because she knew Jamie Chadwick was going to potentially get that win. If she wasn't there on the podium, multiple points would be lost, and unfortunately, it just really backfired her. And then again, on the last lap today, her and Alice Powell, some folks were saying it looked like she was starting to lose the car, and then Powell was just right there and hit her. That one, I think that was just more of a racing incident. As you mentioned, no penalty yet, but I think at the end, it should have been a penalty for Marta either.
I have to admit, I've only seen it when it happened live. I haven't gone back and watched the replay. That might change my opinion. I was along the same lines as both of you. I thought it was a racing incident when I first saw it. But here's my bigger problem with what happened here. Garcia got to celebrate on the podium. And then hours after the race is when race control comes in. They give her the penalty and the results shift. I don't like that at all. I think if you're going to make a call like that affects not just the outcome of the race results, but the outcome of the podium ceremony and celebration, you have to make that call immediately. You can't go in and 10 hours later after a super long investigation say, okay, now we're going to go ahead and penalize and change the race results. It reminds me of Brazil in 2019 in Formula One when Carlos Sainz got his first quote unquote podium with McLaren. Lewis Hamilton had made contact with Alex Albon towards the end of the race. Lewis got to celebrate on the podium, but they took a long time to decide to give Lewis the 5-second penalty. So Carlos Sainz, it was funny. Everybody was talking about him getting ignored by the television cameras all season that year. And his one podium that he got was one that he didn't even get to celebrate on TV with on the actual podium. So, I think if you're going to make that call, it has to be, if we go back a little bit earlier, even to one of the United States Grand Prix where Verstappen cut the inside corner when he passed Raikkonen on the final lap, they made that decision right away. And whether you agree with it or not, I will take that any day to give Kimi the opportunity to actually celebrate a podium like a real podium and make the call right away rather than going back hours after the race or however long it takes and making that decision. So I think, if you're going to err on the side of caution or err on the side of, it's close enough that we really have to take a look at this and study this, it's probably just a racing incident. Garcia crossed the line second place. She celebrated on the podium. That's where she should be represented in the box score.
You bring up a really interesting point, Ben. I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it. You know, Marta Garcia went to bed last night thinking she's on the podium, and then this morning, you know, the very next day, W Series makes the call that they're going to penalize her and take away the podium just like that. I feel like in the future, W Series needs to act more timely in those decisions. Yeah, like you said, I rather take a quick decision, you know, 50-50, whether it's right or wrong, rather than get that out as soon as they possibly can, rather than taking hours and hours to debate about it and then to make a call. And I mentioned Marta Garcia said on social media she was very upset on what happened. I found the actual tweet. Marta said, "I have no words to describe the feeling I got yesterday. I totally think I deserve that P2 for me. It was a racing incident. Very unhappy with the situation since I like fair things. And I think that the fact that they took second place from me and gave me a 10-second time penalty is an injustice." So Marta Garcia, not happy at all. And I also agree that I felt that was a racing incident. You know, final lap, Emma came alive in last lap desperation. You know, trying to get as much as you can on the racetrack, made a mistake and then contact. So I feel like a 10-second time penalty was way too harsh there. As for Alice Powell, we have to see what W Series decides. And given how they made the call on Marta Garcia, I'm expecting we'll hear a decision first thing tomorrow morning whether or not Alice Powell is going to lose her podium result. And I'm sure that's probably going to leave a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, you know, making the decision like that the very next day, right after they celebrated on the podium and experienced the highest of highs with their racing team. And our W Series rating shows that Chadwick is well ahead of everyone else, and we'll have more on her and the other W Series racers that are in the top five throughout the 2022 W Series season. For the first time, W Series is a part of the grid ranking.
W Series part of the grid ranking. We'll get to the grid ranking right after the NASCAR Cup Series. At Darlington Raceway, we saw 9 caution flags end this race. 13 cars did not finish the race. This ties Talladega for the most DNFs in 2022. And with 2 laps to go, Logano pushed Byron out of the lead. Entering turn 3, Byron, his race pretty much for the win, ended. He fell to 13th. The win was gone. The top 5 finish was gone. Top 10 finish gone. 13th place. Logano, we know he is not afraid to give the bumper. We discussed this on time and time again about beating and banging and pushing, especially on short tracks. Darlington is a much bigger track. However, the big thing we talked about, especially yesterday, if you want to run fast, you are up against that wall. So running closer to the wall, yes, it ruined Byron's race, but it wasn't a situation where we saw where retaliation clearly crosses the line. One good example a lot of people discuss about that was Keselowski, Carl Edwards at Atlanta in 2012, where we saw Keselowski go airborne. However, here's the other thing we knew. Logano was winless so far in 2022. Yes, he won the Busch Clash, but that doesn't get him into the playoffs. Byron, he was so close to getting his 3rd win to be the first driver to get 3 wins this year. So Logano, a little less afraid to use that bumper today. Was Logano's moves justified to get his first win of 2022?
Well, Joe, this actually takes me back to the question we talked about yesterday on Grid Live pre-race. If we thought Team Penske was going to be a contender for the win this weekend, Joey Logano and his teammates, I guess we really should have said, because I know unanimously we said Team Penske would probably not win this weekend, and but we probably should have rephrased that as, do you think Team Penske will win cleanly this weekend? And apparently, you know, that did not happen. Joey Logano, I saw the replay of the contact Joey Logano referred to. It didn't look like anything malicious that William Byron did. It looked like they were just side by side racing hard, and Logano scraped the wall. And apparently that set off Joey Logano, where he felt like he needed to get payback against William Byron. Was the move justified or not? I'll let everybody else figure that part out. But I will say, if Joey Logano can feel good with that move and go to sleep at night, then I guess he felt like he made the right move for him during the time being. But Joey Logano should not be upset if William Byron decides to repay the favor later on.
William Byron was not happy with the way Joey Logano moved him out of the way for the win. If you go back and watch William Byron's interview with Jamie Little after the race, he was not too thrilled at all. It was now to me, I think it was the bump and run. Yeah, it's Darlington. It's a crown jewel event on NASCAR's calendar. A crown jewel track on NASCAR's calendar. So, I didn't have a problem. To me, I think Joe Logano could have gotten around William Byron a lot more cleanly, but like I said, William Byron was not happy at what Joey Logano did to him. So to me, I think it could have been done a lot more cleaner.
I have to agree, Adam. I think this really bordered on a dump and run versus a bump and run. I know people said Byron put Logano into the wall a little bit earlier. You know, it obviously didn't do very much damage to Logano's car. Clearly, he had the faster car at the end, and I think could have just gotten around William Byron cleanly. So I don't know that the retaliation, if you will, fit the crime or the punishment didn't fit the crime for what Byron did to Logano earlier in the race as the laps were winding down. I think, you know, I'd be a little bit more sympathetic if it was the last lap, but, you know, with how much faster the 22 was over the 24, I think there was certainly an opportunity, especially considering there was a whole nother lap left coming around to get the white flag. There was certainly a chance for Logano to try to make a clean pass, and then if he had to, out of desperation, make a bump around on the final lap, I guess I understand that a little bit more. But, you know, I think there was certainly a lot of criticism directed towards Logano. I think my timeline it wasn't quite unanimous, but it was certainly much more in Byron's favor in terms of who we're siding with in this discussion. And the other thing to consider is it's not like Byron crossed the line in second or third place. He fell all the way to 13th. So, you know, if it had just been if it had happened on the last lap, I think Byron probably still would have been okay to come home with a top 3 finish. The fact that he fell so far back, you know, I know it doesn't really mean much in the grand scheme of things given the playoff grid, but you know, on the other hand, you do have to consider, you know, you always want to have 3 wins instead of 2 because you have more playoff points. So, you know, I don't blame William Byron for racing hard and trying to win the race for himself, even though he does have a couple wins to fall back on and Joey Logano doesn't. So I guess, like you said, Kobe, if Joey Logano can look at himself in the mirror and be okay with that, then, you know, I guess that's all fair. And, you know, that's kind of the culture that we've manifested certainly the last several years with this win you're in format. But William Byron, we'll see if he's like Jimmy Spencer and if he forgets or not. But, you know, based on his post-race interview, he seemed pretty upset. And William's a pretty cool guy in most circumstances. So, you know, for him to be that flustered by something like this, you know, we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, Byron was hot after that. I haven't seen that side of William Byron before, so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And we know Joey Logano is known for getting drivers angry to the point where, of course, the most infamous, him versus Matt Kenseth in the playoffs. We're definitely going to be following, see what happens between the two each and every race. And this race, wow. Yesterday we talked about how different it's going to be and more difficult with this new car. The track, known to being too tough to tame, it was too tough to tame. It seemed like it was much harder for everyone, not just racing out there, but even pit stops. We saw mistakes coming on pit road, off pit road. Chase Elliott spun. He was saved with a caution. We saw over 20 Darlington stripes handed out as everyone's trying to get the speed out of the car. And then some of the favorites to have issues, including Kyle Larson. He led early on. He spun. Engine issue. He was out. Up towards the front, Kyle Busch. He crashes into Brad Keselowski, who had a flat tire, a rough day going. He was out. Then a 9-car pile that took out all of 2311. Denny Hamlin and Eric Jones, who was having a pretty good run. He was my pick. Didn't happen. And then Ross Chastain, he lost it on a restart. Ended his streak with so many great finishes. A DNF at Darlington. Adam, do you believe Darlington may have caught many of the teams by surprise with how challenging it was?
Oh, absolutely, Joe. It was challenging for everybody. And if you haven't had a chance to see it, Joe and I did a video about Kyle Busch, and after his accident with Brad Keselowski, he had a traditional meltdown because that's Kyle Busch. If he doesn't win, he doesn't get his way. It was very challenging for everybody. I picked Kyle Larson to win yesterday. Obviously, it didn't happen. But that hard hit, with 2311 Racing that Kurt Busch had, wowee. I'm wondering if Michael Jordan was happy to be in Miami this weekend instead of Darlington, since all his cars crashed out in one wreck. It was a very challenging race at the track they call Lady in Black and Too Tough to Tame, and I believe it on all those nicknames that people have given Darlington. Yeah, it was Too Tough to Tame, and it claimed a lot of cars today in South Carolina.
I think Humperdinck has another comment for us here. I voted no to the poll. I'm assuming he means the Jeff Gluck poll was a good race, even though I didn't see the race. So that's the cardinal sin of the poll. You can't do that, Humperdinck. Come on. Safe bet, I guess, with Logano that his moves aren't fair. Again, maybe the bias is towards the finish there. But I have to admit, I'm abstaining from the poll this week as I missed the first half trying to focus on the F1 race. But we'll see. I guess we have a poll on our channel as well. So a couple of different polls going on in regards to that race. First of all, Adam, I think you're completely right. I think Michael Jordan has to be happy that he was in Miami this weekend, and poor Jeff Gordon as well, flying from Miami to catch and finish at Darlington, and then to see his car get taken out with just a couple of laps to go. That beautiful throwback scheme. I wish the number had been in the center of the door. That's the only thing that could have made that scheme better. I think probably the best in show, right up with Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez's Trackhouse cars. But, I think getting back to the question here, I think drivers were caught out. We've seen it be a theme all year, but this next-gen car has been significantly tougher to drive, particularly tougher to drive than the intermediate tracks where we had the 550 package. So, I think drivers, I don't know if they just got used to how the Gen 6 drove and then how the Gen 6 drove with that package. This, I think, is significantly more challenging, and it's letting the drivers showcase their skills, but sometimes they're pushing it over the edge. And, I think unfortunately caught quite a bit of them out today. It was unfortunate that one of those accidents took out so many good race cars. 2311 in particular, they just cannot catch a break. They've been struggling in performance a little bit, but it seems like the weekends that they actually have good runs, something still goes wrong. So it's unfortunate for that team. Hopefully they can get things turned around with both Bubba Wallace and Kurt Busch as the season goes on. But I think certainly a lot of drivers were caught out by surprise with this next-gen car. And, we've seen it in a couple races already this season. I think we're going to continue to see it as drivers continue to get used to this next-gen car.
And one of the things, some of those drivers that were having bad days today, overall, some notable finishers in the top 10. Justin Haley, 3rd place. We saw Michael McDowell, 7th place. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 2nd top 10 finish in a row. And Daniel Suarez, top 10 finish. He's had some bad luck as of late compared to Ross Chastain's wins. This has to feel good for him, hopefully to get back on track again. And then, of course, some of the notable hard luck drivers. Denny Hamlin, 21st. 2311, 27th, and 28th, both of them in that 9-car pileup. Ross Chastain, 30th with that crash. Kyle Busch, 33rd. And Kyle Larson, 36th, dead last out of the 36-car field. Just something else where it was just a lot going on. This seemed like the vintage Darlington I remember of growing up, where it was just a matter of survival. And then, of course, we have Kansas next race weekend. That track has been known for being really hard. So, Ben, which drivers do you anticipate can continue the positive momentum or start a rebound effort at Kansas? And let's have a quick follow-up with that, too. Denny Hamlin, he had the crew chief this weekend. They're appealing the penalty. Do you think they're going to drop that appeal and have the penalty be served now?
I'll take the second part first. I think JGR is happy to appeal it as long as NASCAR will let them, and the crew chief can continue serving through the appeal process. Why not see if I don't expect a penalty. I don't expect the appeal to go through, but I expect the penalty to have to be served at some point. But I think you got nothing to lose. You might as well continue down this path that you've already set for yourself. To get back to the first part of the question here, my Encore co-host Brandon Crossland has been saying he thinks the Coke 600 is when Larson's going to turn it up, similar to what he did last year. So I'm not going to go with him. I'm going to go with Chastain. I think to rebound, based on the season that he's had, I think this might be something that they can just write off as an anomaly and get back to focusing on the strong runs that they've had to start the season. We've all been talking about how great Trackhouse have been seemingly out of nowhere. They had some strong runs last year, but they've really turned it up with Ross Chastain. I think they're going to be able to rebound fairly quickly. In terms of who finished in the top 10 that can actually keep the momentum going, I've really been impressed with Colleague, just how far they've come, not just in the Cup Series and the team's infancy here with, this being the first year that they've run two chartered teams, but, just the entire team's history as well in Xfinity, how quickly they became championship contenders is really remarkable. And it looks like they might just be on their way to doing that in Cup as well. Justin Haley had a great run today. Bringing home, I know we don't have podiums in NASCAR, but a podium place here with third place today is a great run for him, and also Stenhouse as well to get a second top 10 in a row for JTG Daugherty. Maybe they can build on that and continue that momentum as the weeks go on.
In regards to Denny Hamlin's crew chief, I think I pretty much said everything I was gonna say yesterday on Grit Live pre-race. Basically, what Ben just said, they don't really have anything to lose by doing this because Denny Hamlin's already locked into the playoffs, no matter what. So fight this out as long as you can. I don't expect them to win the appeal. So that means Chris Gabehart just have to serve his suspension and he'll be back for the races that matters the most in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. So I don't really think that appealing this the process. Yes, they're going to go through that, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, nothing to lose. And getting back to the first question you asked about which drivers can continue the momentum or start a rebound, I'm going to start with a driver who I think can continue the momentum. That's the driver number 47 Chevrolet, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Last weekend at Dover, finished second, got a top 10 at Darlington, and I think this team is really turning things around because before Dover and Darlington, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. only had one top 10 finish at Auto Club Speedway, and his finishes, his other finishes, they were not good. 28th in the Daytona 500, 21st at Las Vegas, 28th at Phoenix, 31st at Atlanta, 37th at COTA, and then the rest of his finishes were, just inside the top 30. And getting the results these last 2 weeks at Dover and Darlington, I think that's going to be huge for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and that team to try to build confidence and get those cars running faster. Because looking at where they are right now in the points, that team is certainly capable of doing a lot better than where they are right now at the moment. And I think these last 2 weeks, they've really shown us what they can be capable of. And I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. can really start building momentum. As for one team I'm going to focus on that really needs to start a rebound, that is 2311 Racing. Bubba Wallace and Kurt Busch, I don't know what's going on with that organization lately, but it seems like everything is going wrong. Nothing has gone right. It looked like Kurt Busch and Bubba Wallace were going to have a really strong day at Darlington. And I think this is one of the best performances I've seen Bubba Wallace have at a non-super speedway track in a while. And he was obviously very frustrated at the end of this one because he could have had a top 10 finish at one of NASCAR's most challenging tracks, only to get caught up in that big wreck and get taken out. So I think 2311 Racing, they have to figure out their issues on the pit stop side of things that seems to be plaguing them this year. And unfortunately, they were just caught up in a lot of bad luck today.
Grid ranking, Shane Van Gisbergen continues to lead the championship. Today's also happens to be his birthday, so a good way for Shane Van Gisbergen to enjoy his off weekend with her birthday. And for the first time, we have 40 racers score as the W Series is now part of the grid ranking. One of the big things we saw, as you noticed in the top 10, Ross Chastain, he fell from 6th down to 8th. And in fact, when it comes to the NASCAR ratings, Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, and Kyle Larson, all of them finishing outside the top 10 along with William Byron. So all of them dropped while Joey Logano got in the grid ranking by getting that 5th position. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen, he is now back in the top 10. Interesting stats we mentioned earlier on. Every time he finished a race this year, he has won that race. And if Verstappen, if we only counted the race where he just finished, not all 5 Formula One races, he would be the grid ranking leader. And we're getting to Barcelona, track of his first win. So, Kobe, starting with you, do you believe we'll see Max Verstappen make it 3 in a row in Barcelona, the site of his first win?
Yeah, if nothing goes wrong, I certainly think Max Verstappen is going to be capable of winning at Barcelona. You mentioned it was the site of his very first career Formula One Grand Prix victory, and he's really good at this track. And so far, we've been talking about reliability. That's been the big issue plugging Red Bull this year. And when he's on the track, it seems like he can certainly get the job done and take the fight to Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. And if Red Bull hasn't issue-free weekend at Barcelona, I certainly think Max Verstappen can really get on a roll here.
Kobe, I agree with you. I think Max Verstappen is going to be one of the people you need to look out for. And also Sergio Perez, and you never can Ferrari. They need a huge weekend in Barcelona.
They need a huge weekend in Barcelona. Last race weekend didn't go well for them in Imola. That's where we saw Lando Norris on the podium, and Hamilton, a poor performance. He fell out of the grid ranking for the first time. And then this race weekend, still did not get in. Carlos Sainz bypassed both of them to get into the top 5. And here's the big thing. With Lewis Hamilton, he is the only driver in the history of the grid ranking to finish in the top 10 each and every season since the grid ranking started in 2017. Now, one of the big things, of course, Sainz, he got around both of them. We're coming to Barcelona. Lando Norris, he's going to try to rebound. So, Ben, starting with you, do you think Lewis can get in the top 5 and ahead those drivers and into the grid ranking?
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't. I really don't. I see George Russell ahead even a little bit on the grid rating right now, and I think when you look at the performance this season, Josh mentioned it in the bit that he did. 4 of the 5 races this year, Russell has been ahead of Hamilton in the end result. I think when you look at the performance difference between Ferrari and Red Bull right now and the rest of the field, there's only room for one other driver in the top 5 mathematically. It's going to belong to George Russell unless Lewis Hamilton can start consistently outperforming him. And I think as of right now, again, this can change. It's still early in the season. I have confidence. I mean, Lewis is a 7-time champion. I'm not going to knock his skill set or anything. But I think right now, George Russell is a little bit more comfortable in the Mercedes as it is than Lewis Hamilton. So I think it's going to be quite a few weeks before we see Lewis crack the top 5.
Yeah, quite a few weeks, or how about a few months if Lewis Hamilton cannot get a handle on this Mercedes. And it's really weird because sometimes it seems like the Formula One car for a certain team will fit driver A, but it won't fit driver B. And in the case of Mercedes, George Russell is driver A. This car really seems to fit his driving style, although it's certainly not the best car that Mercedes has produced, probably one of their more weaker cars, but George is able to maximize the performance of it and get some decent results out of it. And Lewis, on the other hand, really seems like he's having quite a struggle. But like you said, Ben, it's really early in the season. The tide can change for Lewis Hamilton, but as we sit right now, I don't see how Lewis Hamilton's going to be able to make any progress in the grid ranking.
And then according to the grid ranking, the first time we have female racers that made it through at the W Series. Jamie Chadwick, of course, she's leading the 5 drivers are in the grid ranking, and she sets the bar with a 13th place. Of course, she won the first 2 races, so 100% win rate so far, but she has won 4 in a row, counting the races from last season to this season. And then the next race weekend in a couple of weeks is in Spain, Barcelona, a track known for being really hard to pass. Of course, the W Series cars, they're Formula 3 chassis tattoos cars with no DRS. This race weekend, it seemed like the slipstream was a little bit more effective compared to last year. But still, do you believe Jamie Chadwick will make it 3 in a row or Spain, Barcelona?
Yes, Joe. I think right now we always talk about Shane Van Gisbergen being on the top steps of the podium in the Repco Supercar Championship. Well, I think you're going to have to knock off Jamie Chadwick to win the W Series. I think she will make it 3 in a row in Barcelona.
I'm not going to pick against her. I still don't see a perfect season happening. Get back to me if she's won 8 of 10 or 9 of 10 and she only has a couple left. But I think, Joe, you were joking that she's the new Kyle Larson, I guess. Everybody's just going to be using their picks on her for pick a winner for the foreseeable future. There's no reason to bet against her. So, like I said, don't see her winning every single race, but I think she's the safest bet for every single race if that means anything for our pick a winner game here at the Grid Network. So I think there's no reason to bet against her after a perfect weekend. So yeah, why not? She'll go ahead and make it 3 in a row.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Ben. I think Jamie Chadwick is obviously going to be the safe bet heading into the next round for the W Series. Most of us here at Grid Network and probably most of the viewers probably going to pick Jamie Chadwick already to win both races because she's really that good. And as we were saying earlier, it really seems like the championship is certainly going to have to go through her. But if this weekend was any indication, who could potentially take the fight to her in the championship if she's able to bounce back from a disastrous race one. Maybe you can see Alice Powell really take the fight to her, and Nerea Marti ran well this weekend too. So yeah, but overall, Jamie Chadwick is on Tier A right now, and Tier B have a gaggle of drivers trying to catch up to her.
And by the way, Jamie Chadwick broke the record for pick a winner as 8 different people scored a point or double points with her pick. So it's going to be really interesting to see if she becomes a new Kyle Larson or Shane Van Gisbergen for pick a winner in their respective series. And next race weekend, we have Formula E doubleheader in Germany, IndyCar, the Indianapolis Road Course, MotoGP in France, side of 24 Hours of Le Mans, and NASCAR at Kansas Speedway. 5 races next race weekend, so be sure to subscribe to us right here on YouTube and follow the Grid Rankin on Twitter at Grid Rankin.
And now it's time for our Grid One Shining Moment from this motorsports weekend. So I'll start with you, Ben. What's your Grid One Shining Moment?
Save mine for the Encore show tomorrow. So I'll just pick between the Grid Ranking series that we talked about here on this show. Throwback weekend's always fun. I do think there is a growing cry that maybe it's run its course because we've seen a lot of the great schemes already. But let me give a shout out to Trackhouse Racing for bringing out those old Coca-Cola paint schemes. It's a shame. I don't think we're going to get die-casts of those because the last several years Coke have really come down on even custom die-cast creators. I think they've sent cease and desist letters. They don't want die-casts made for whatever reason. But man, those were beautiful cars that Trackhouse put out for Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez. It's a shame Chastain's got junked there, because that one car was particularly fantastic. But shout out to Justin Marks and everybody that made those cars happen. Certainly, in my opinion, the best in show, along with William Byron. I think the 24 was very, very sharp. But Trackhouse, they're winning on the track, and they're winning, with what they bring to the track as well. That's my one shining moment, bringing those paint schemes back on Throwback Weekend.
And my one shining moment goes to the driver to number 31, Colin Grayson Chevrolet, Justin Haley, finishing third at Darlington, one of NASCAR's most challenging tracks. I think that's extremely impressive for young Justin Haley to be able to get that result. I know we had a lot of attrition today at Darlington with incidents and a lot of things going wrong for a lot of drivers, but Justin Haley, he was really up on the wheel and saw a lot of good things from him. And Colin Grayson, you mentioned, Ben, first time they're running 2 full-time entries in the NASCAR Cup Series and first full-time season in general in NASCAR Cup Series competition. And and especially for his teammates in the 16 car, it really hasn't been going well lately for him. A lot of disappointing finishes for the number 16 Colic Racing team, but the number 31 team, Justin Haley, certainly been running consistently inside the top 20, and so far out of the 12 races we've had, Justin Haley's only finished outside of the top 20 a total of four times. So I think Justin Haley is going to continue to improve as a driver, hone his skills, and see if he can try to get more runs in the top 10, top 5.
For me, I'm going with Alex Albon Williams to get another points finishing position, 9th, so to better his 10th place finish from a couple races ago. That's spectacular, and I think is something else with this red hair dye. For those that aren't familiar, he dyed his hair red. He scored points at 10th place finish in Australia. It faded by Imola, no points, 11th, and then 9th. You got to look at this. 3 races, 10th, 11th, 9th. This is a great improvement for Williams, and I think it's really amazing to see Alex Albon, after being away for a year, to have 2 points finishes with the Williams. This has to be beyond their expectations. I think they were anticipating, considering where Williams was a year ago.
And for me, my Grid 1 shining moment, today's Mother's Day. So shout out to all the moms in motorsports. And if you're a NASCAR fan, you may not know about Jamie Little, Caitlin Vincey, and Shannon Spake to work the NASCAR broadcast for Fox. They are moms, so they're on the road a lot, doing what they do, and they're away from their families. So shout out to all the moms in motorsports, and shout out to all the moms that we have here. And if we have any moms that are watching, happy Mother's Day from all of us at Grid Network. So for me, my Grid 1 shining moment, all the moms in motorsports, on this Mother's Day.
And with that, we're just about out of time. We want to thank our Patreon subscribers, calling the show Mark, for keeping us on the air. You too can invest into Grid Network through our Patreon monthly donation to us to keep us on the air, get us on the road to the racetrack. And of course, if you want to do one contribution, you can do that through Buy Me a Coffee. And be sure to follow our social media networks. We're on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch, where we also do live streaming there as well. And of course, definitely check out public.com, social media homepage for the stock market. You get $5 in stock by using the referral code GridNet. There you can learn about investing in the stock market as well too. So if you don't know anything about the stock market, they have tools to learn. You could go out there, meet new people, make friends, so that way you're not just investing in the dark. Public.com, GridNet for $5 in free stock. We want to thank everyone for participating in the chat room, watching us. Of course, we got Grid Encore tomorrow with Ben and Brandon, then Grid tonight with Kobe, and we have also on the link in the video description, Life on the Grid with Kobe and Ben recapping their show. So definitely we encourage everyone to be sure to click on the link below to see that show as well, and just be sure to subscribe to us right here on the Grid Network. For myself, Adam Lemeries, Kobe Lambs from the Podium Finish, and Ben Schneider, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time, and have a wonderful day. Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.